The Invisible Hunter, April 28, 1943, 600 miles east of Newfoundland, North Atlantic. The North Atlantic heaves beneath a slate-gray sky, its swells rising 15 feet in the pre-dawn darkness. Aboard HMS Duncan, Commander Peter Gretton presses his binoculars against salt-crusted glass, scanning the horizon for the 43 merchant ships under his protection, convoy ONS-5. Behind him, inside the destroyer's cramped operations room, a young rating hunches over a cathode ray tube, headphones clamped tight against his skull. The green glow illuminates his focused expression as he adjusts the frequency dial on a device the Royal Navy calls high-frequency direction finding. The Germans don't know it exists. They call it Huff Duff, and it's about to change everything. The rating's hand freezes. Through the static and atmospheric noise comes something different, a brief transmission, high frequency, lasting only seconds. Morse code. His fingers work quickly across the cathode display, marking the bearing, 287 degrees, 20 miles distant. HF-DF contact, sir, he reports to the officer of the watch. U-boat transmission, single bearing, northwest quadrant. The message races to the bridge. Gretton studies the plot. One bearing isn't enough for a kill, but it's enough for something better, knowledge. Somewhere out there, beneath the waves or cutting through the surface, a U-boat commander has just spoken to his masters in occupied France. He believes his radio transmission is invisible, a whisper in the electromagnetic spectrum that the Allies cannot detect. He's wrong. Within minutes, Duncan's sister ship, the destroyer Tay, equipped with identical HF-DF gear, picks up another transmission from the same source. Now Gretton has two bearings. Where they intersect on his chart, 23 miles northwest, a U-boat prowls. The convoy alters course 5 degrees south. The U-boat, still transmitting position reports to BDU, Befehlshaber der Unterseeboote, U-boat command in Germany, has no idea it's being tracked. When dawn breaks and a RAF flying fortress from 206 squadron spots U-710 fully surfaced, her captain, Oberleutnant Zur Z. Dietrich von Karlowitz, makes a fatal decision. Instead of crash diving, he orders his anti-aircraft guns manned. The fortress's depth charges straddle the boat at right angles. U-710 goes down stern first, her maiden patrol ending in twisted metal and 25 men thrashing in the frigid water. Cowley, the fortress pilot, radios back to base. Contact from HF-DF, bearing confirmed, U-boat destroyed. This is the weapon the Germans don't understand. It's not radar, it's not luck. It's their own voices bouncing across the Atlantic on high-frequency radio waves, betrayed by the very system designed to coordinate their Wolfpack attacks. The Wolf's Howl, 1939-1942. The development of the invisible net. When war erupts in September 1939, Admiral Karl Dönitz commands a U-boat force designed around a single, devastating principle, the Wolfpack. Unlike the lone hunters of the First World War, his submarines operate in coordinated groups, assembling like predators around a convoy before striking simultaneously from multiple directions. The tactic requires constant communication. U-boats spot a convoy, shadow it, and transmit its position, course, and speed to BDU headquarters in occupied France. BDU analyzes the data, calculates intercept courses, and broadcasts orders to every boat in the operational area. More submarines converge. The pack forms. Then, under cover of darkness, they attack. For the first 3 years of war, this system works with terrifying efficiency. German radio operators transmit in short bursts, 20-30 seconds at most, using high-frequency bands that can reach across thousands of miles. They believe these transmissions are undetectable, mere whispers in the vastness of the Atlantic. Allied convoy escorts, they assume, lack the technology to pinpoint a transmitter from a brief signal. They're partially right. Early British direction-finding equipment is cumbersome, slow, and designed for shore stations. Triangulating a U-boat's position requires multiple land-based receivers, synchronized measurements, and time, often hours, to plot coordinates. By then, the U-boat has moved, dived, or already attacked. But British scientists, driven by mounting merchant ship losses, developed something revolutionary. By 1941, they've miniaturized HFDF equipment enough to fit it aboard escort vessels. The key innovation isn't just size, it's speed. The new shipboard sets can lock onto a transmission in seconds, determining its bearing with precision. A rotating antenna or fixed array detects the angle from which the high-frequency signal arrives strongest. One escort gets a single bearing, a line on the chart. Two escorts, separated by miles, get two bearings. Where the lines cross, a U-boat transmits. By early 1942, the Royal Navy begins installing HFDF sets on destroyers and frigates. The equipment is simple. A tall antenna mounted aft of the stack, connected to a receiver and cathode ray display in a cramped compartment below decks. An operator monitors the frequencies U-boats use, waiting for that telltale spike in the noise. Commander Peter Gretton, assigned to Escort Group B7, drills his operators relentlessly at Londonderry. HMS Duncan and HMS Tay both carry the equipment. Gretton's doctrine is clear. The moment a U-boat transmits, his escorts pounce. Even if they don't sink the submarine, forcing it to dive disrupts the Wolfpack coordination. A submerged U-boat is slow, 7 knots underwater versus 17 on the surface. The convoy, steaming at 7.5 knots, simply sails past. The Germans notice more aggressive escorts, more aircraft appearing over convoys at opportune moments. But they attribute this to improved radar, not compromised communications. Dönitz never suspects that every radio transmission his boats make is a beacon, drawing hunters straight to them. Between 1942 and 1944, HFDF contributes to 24% of all U-boat losses during the war. The Wolf's Howl has become its death sentence. The Convergence, May 4th, 1943. 56 degrees north, 42 degrees west. The Greenland Gap. 41 U-boats wait in a line, stretching 382 nautical miles across the North Atlantic. The largest concentration of submarines ever assembled against a single convoy. Admiral Dönitz, orchestrating from his headquarters in Berlin, has deployed Group Star and Group Specht in overlapping patrol lines specifically to intercept westbound convoys. His intelligence has identified convoy ONS-5, 43 merchant ships, mostly empty freighters returning to North America for fresh cargo, vulnerable, slow, sailing directly into his trap. Aboard the frigate HMS Tay, Lieutenant Commander Robert Sherwood has just assumed command of the escort after Commander Gretton's destroyer limped away, fuel tanks nearly dry. Sherwood is a Merchant Navy veteran who joined the Royal Navy Reserve in 1929. He's fought U-boats in corvettes and destroyers, and he knows what the increasing HFDF contacts mean. His operators report bearings from port bow, port quarter, starboard beam, starboard quarter. The cathode displays light up continuously. At 19:20 hours, the Admiralty signals, heavy and continuous wireless traffic in your proximity. The U-boats are talking constantly. Dönitz's system requires it. U-650 transmits, convoy steaming at 8 to 10 miles, course 270 degrees. U-584 confirms, masthead sighted, grid square BD. BDU responds with orders. All boats, close on reported position, form attack line, strike at nightfall. Each transmission takes 20 to 30 seconds. Each one gives Sherwood another bearing, another piece of the puzzle. He positions his meager force, 2 destroyers, 5 corvettes, 3 armed trawlers, around the convoy's perimeter. HMS Vidette takes the port bow. HMS Lucistrife covers starboard. HMS Sunflower guards the rear. The instructions are simple. The moment HFDF picks up a transmission, the nearest escort charges down that bearing at maximum speed. Force the U-boat to dive. Keep it submerged. Buy time. At 2300 hours, the first attack comes. U-707 surfaces 6 miles from the convoy, transmitting, "In position, preparing to attack." Duncan's HFDF operator catches it instantly. Bearing 325 degrees, range estimated 5 miles. Vidette, already positioned on that bearing, surges forward, her radar picking up the surface submarine at 3,600 yards. The U-boat's lookouts spot the destroyer's bow wave, a white slash in the darkness, and the alarm klaxon screams. She crash dives. Vidette's ASDIC pings frantically, locking contact at 400 yards. 10 depth charges tumble from her stern racks, set to explode at 150 and 250 feet. The ocean erupts. Underwater, the concussions hammer U-707's pressure hull, but she survives, limping away with cracked frames and a damaged dive plane. Minutes later, another transmission. U-264 reports, attacking from starboard quarter. Lucistrife, guided by HFDF bearing 146 degrees, races toward the contact at 18 knots. The corvette's Type 271 radar finds the U-boat at 4,800 yards, still on the surface, preparing to fire torpedoes. Lucistrife opens up with her 4-inch gun. Shells bracket the submarine. She dives. Another depth charge pattern thunders into the deep. This continues for 6 hours. U-boat after U-boat attempts to penetrate the screen, and each time HFDF betrays them. They must transmit. Donitz's doctrine demands it. Report positions, confirm targets, coordinate attacks. But every broadcast draws an escort like a hound to a scent. By dawn on May 5th, frustrated U-boat captains have managed only sporadic attacks, sinking 7 merchants but losing their tactical cohesion. The invisible hunter has turned the predator into prey. The kill May 5th, 1943, 11:54 hours, 80 miles astern of convoy ONS-5, HMS Pink, a Flower-class corvette displacing only 950 tons, zigzags ahead of 4 stragglers trying to catch up with the main convoy. Lieutenant Robert Atkinson, 27 years old and a veteran of anti-submarine school at HMS Osprey in Portland, stands on the open bridge, spray soaking his duffel coat. Pink rolls violently in the Atlantic swell. Flower-class corvettes are notorious for their motion, capable of rolling on damp grass, as the saying goes. But they're tough, reliable, and deadly when handled correctly. At 11:54 hours, Pink's ASDIC operator reports, "Contact, bearing 045, range 2,200 yards, solid echo. Submarine." Atkinson has trained for this moment. He knows the sound signature of a U-boat, distinct, metallic, different from wrecks or false echoes from thermal layers. He orders, "Action stations, full ahead, steer 045, prepare depth charges." Pink surges forward, her single screw thrashing. The ASDIC ping shortens, 1,800 yards, 1,200 yards, 800 yards. The U-boat, U-192, realizes she's been detected. Her captain, Oberleutnant Suzie Werner Happe, orders emergency speed, trying to outrun the corvette while staying submerged. But a submerged U-boat makes only 7 knots. Pink, even with her modest 16-knot maximum, closes rapidly. At 600 yards, Atkinson orders fire pattern Alpha, depth settings 150 and 250 feet. 10 depth charges roll from Pink's stern racks and are hurled from her throwers. They sink, trailing bubbles. Then the ocean convulses. 10 columns of white water erupt 200 feet into the air. The shockwave races outward, invisible but devastating. Inside U-192's pressure hull, lights shatter. Gauges crack. Men are thrown against bulkheads. The submarine groans, a terrible grinding sound of stressed steel. Atkinson circles, ASDIC searching, contact regained. The U-boat is deeper now, trying to escape beneath a thermal layer. Second attack. Depth settings 250 and 385 feet. Another pattern, another thunderous detonation. This time oil bubbles to the surface, spreading in an iridescent slick. Pink's lookouts scan for debris, anything confirming a kill. Nothing yet. Atkinson makes a calculated decision. His 4 straggling merchant ships are vulnerable, unprotected, but he believes this U-boat is mortally wounded. One more attack. He orders the Hedgehog prepared, a forward-throwing weapon that launches 24 mortar-like projectiles in an elliptical pattern ahead of the ship. Unlike depth charges, Hedgehogs only explode on contact with a solid object. If they detonate, it means a confirmed hit. Pink accelerates, positioning for a Hedgehog run. At 400 yards, the weapon fires with a rippling whoosh. 24 projectiles arc through the air, splashing into the sea in a precise pattern. The crew holds its breath. Underwater, U-192 tries desperately to evade, but the Hedgehog pattern is too wide, too well aimed. Then, wham! 2 explosions, sharp and distinct. Direct hits. The U-boat's forward torpedo room floods instantly. Her bow tilts down. Emergency lights flicker. Hape orders, "Surface, blow all tanks." But the damage is catastrophic. Compressed air hisses into ruptured ballast tanks, achieving nothing. U-192's bow drops to 45 degrees. Water pours through buckled seams. At 12:30 hours, she implodes at 800 feet, crushed by the Atlantic's pressure. 51 men die instantly. On Pink's bridge, a massive air bubble bursts at the surface, followed by oil, debris, and pieces of wood paneling. Atkinson records in his log, "U-boat destroyed, confirmed kill." This is the 4th U-boat sunk in the battle for convoy ONS-5, and HFDF played a role in every engagement. The submarines had to transmit to coordinate, and each transmission guided escorts directly to them. The hunters became the hunted, their own communications transformed into lethal targeting data. Black May 1943, the breaking point. By the end of the first week of May 1943, Admiral Dönitz faces a crisis he cannot comprehend. In the battle for convoy ONS-5 alone, his forces sank 13 merchant ships, a respectable tactical result, but lost 7 U-boats, U-192, U-638, U-125, U-531, U-630, U-438, and U-209. 364 trained officers and men gone. Among the dead is Dönitz's own son, serving aboard one of the lost boats. Across the Atlantic theater, May 1943 will see 41 U-boats destroyed, the highest monthly loss of the entire war. Allied submariners will later call it Black May. Dönitz and his staff desperately seek explanations. They know the Allies have improved radar. The 10-centimeter sets carried by long-range aircraft are undetectable by German METOX radar warning receivers. They suspect convoy routing is being influenced by intelligence, though they cannot fathom how. But they never seriously consider that their own radio communications are betraying them. The possibility that the Allies can direction find on high-frequency transmissions in real time from ships at sea seems technologically impossible. German U-boats carry their own HFDF loop antennas, but these are slow, manually operated devices intended to locate navigational beacons, not enemy transmitters. In interrogations after the war, captured U-boat commanders express shock when told about shipboard HFDF. One captain states, "We attributed our detection to radar. Always radar. We developed flak U-boats with heavy anti-aircraft guns to fight the planes. We ordered boats to stay submerged longer. We never imagined our radios were the problem." The irony is profound. Every measure Dönitz takes to counter Allied radar, ordering more radio reports on aircraft sightings, more coordination signals, more status updates, only increases the volume of transmissions, making his boats easier to locate. By mid-May, the statistical evidence is undeniable. In the first 22 days of May, Atlantic convoys sink more U-boats than the U-boats sink merchant ships. On May 24th, Dönitz makes the hardest decision of his career. He signals all Atlantic U-boats, withdraw from convoy routes, cease North Atlantic operations, pending tactical reassessment. For the first time since 1939, the Wolfpacks retreat. The Battle of the Atlantic isn't over, but the tide has turned irreversibly. The Allies will lose more ships, more men, but Germany's strategic hope of severing the transatlantic supply line dies in May 1943. HFDF is not the only reason. Ultra-intelligence from Bletchley Park's decryption of Enigma signals, improved shipboard radar, long-range B-24 Liberator aircraft closing the mid-Atlantic air gap, escort carriers providing constant air cover, more destroyer escorts flooding from American shipyards, all contribute. But HFDF's contribution is uniquely devastating because it exploits the enemy's own tactical doctrine. Donitz's Wolfpack system requires communication. Communication requires transmission. Transmission provides targeting data. The wolf's howl became the hunter's guide. The silent lesson, 1944-1945, the war's end, and the technology's legacy. After the May 1943 withdrawal, German U-boat command desperately seeks solutions. They introduce the Courier system, a burst transmission technology that compresses a message into a fraction of a second, theoretically too brief for direction finding. But the system is complex, unreliable, and never achieves widespread operational deployment. Most U-boats continue using conventional high-frequency radio, now under strict transmission discipline. Brief signals, irregular schedules, diversified frequencies. It helps marginally, but the damage is done. Allied HFDF networks have matured into comprehensive coverage. By 1944, nearly 50 HFDF stations dot the Allied Atlantic network, from Canada to Britain to Iceland. Shore-based stations with far greater range and sensitivity than shipboard sets create overlapping coverage zones. When a U-boat transmits anywhere in the Atlantic, multiple stations detect it. Bearings converge in plotting rooms in London, Washington, and Ottawa. Within minutes, the U-boat's position is calculated and transmitted to convoy routers, escort commanders, and hunter-killer groups. The ocean, once a vast hiding place, becomes a surveilled grid. American destroyer escorts, mass-produced and equipped with HFDF as standard, form hunter-killer groups around escort carriers. USS Bogue and her task group exemplify the new doctrine. When HFDF detects a U-boat transmission, Bogue's aircraft launch within minutes, racing to the bearing at 150 knots. Even if the U-boat dives immediately after transmitting, the aircraft arrive while the disturbance from the dive is still visible on the surface. On June 4, 1944, a Bogue hunter-killer group captures U-505 intact. The only enemy warship boarded and captured on the high seas by the U.S. Navy since 1815. The operation begins with an HFDF contact. German engineers developed the Type DT Electroboot, a revolutionary design capable of sustained high-speed underwater running, making submerged patrols viable without frequent surfacing. But Donitz's stated reason for the Type 21's development reveals the fundamental misunderstanding. He believes U-boats need better submerged performance to evade radar and ASDIC. He never publicly acknowledges that reducing radio transmissions might be equally important. The Type GTCASs enter service too late to affect the war's outcome. When Germany surrenders in May 1945, Allied naval intelligence conducts extensive debriefings. The consensus among captured U-boat officers is consistent. They knew the Allies had improved technology, but they never grasped the extent of HFDF's capability until after the war. The weapon that sank hundreds of their comrades remained largely invisible to them, just as their submarines had once seemed invisible to convoy escorts. It's a lesson that echoes through naval warfare ever since. In modern combat, communication is both essential and dangerous. The need to coordinate creates vulnerability. The signal you transmit to your own forces can guide the enemy directly to you. Today, electronic warfare, jamming, interception, direction finding, is fundamental to military operations. Every radio transmission, every radar pulse, Every data link is both a capability and a risk. Stealth in the 21st century means more than hiding from radar. It means disciplined silence, burst communications, frequency hopping, encrypted networks. The lessons learned in the North Atlantic between 1939 and 1945 remain valid. The wolves still howl, and the hunters still listen.